Welcome, people, to the All Gunners podcast. And I am your host for today, Hazza Khan, also known as @Harry Kanu on the Twitter. We are, for the first debut on YouTube, recording with our mugs in person, on camera for the first time. Now, you may have seen me on other YouTube channels and whatnot, so I'm not really too new to this. But for the first time ever, we have my brother from another mother, Zed. First time in person, camera on, talk to the people.
I got the guts to turn on the camera and, make my debut, as you will, on YouTube.
Brilliant,
with the face
brilliant.
on, right?
And we are going to be trying now, Zed, aren't we, to be doing this now regularly. This was the intention,
yes,
wasn't it? And
This-
we have
this
to
is it.
apologise, though, don't we, to our audience, because we did make promises that we would be bringing some World Cup content, but
Yes, we did, yeah.
we are relatively new fathers, aren't we? So,
Yes.
well, some newer than
Life's
others.
gonna do it.
Yeah,
Life's gonna do it.
life has
Baby's
unfortunately
gone,
taken over, guys. Yeah, so unfortunately weren't. But what we have for you guys today is an action-packed show where we will be, touching and previewing the World Cup to start with, and we'll be talking about Qatar as a World Cup host and how our Gunners did, and we'll then sort of segue into this sort of Jesus injury, anxieties around that, and Zed will be talking to us about sort of his feelings and whether he thought our season was over. But at the same time, maybe the fact that a transfer window is around the corner, that might have been a silver lining. We'll come on to that. We're going to then go into discussing, guys, the West Ham game as well. We're going to think about how we kind of took off, and it's almost as if we didn't miss Jesus, but then it was only West Ham. So, but the really meaty part of the show, Zed, is going to be, and we keep saying this about this cliche about this is our really penultimate part of the season. We will be previewing and discussing the next 4/5 games leading up to that game against City in Feb. And, we always like to do a bit of cheeky transfer talk as well, don't we, Zed?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
we will be talking about Mudryk. So don't worry, listeners, or we should be calling you viewers now, shouldn't we? We will be talking about our links to Mudryk and how realistic that may be. So, Zed, let's kick off. How have you been anyway? How was your World Cup?
Mate, I've been well. Disappointed, obviously, that we couldn't get as much content or any content out as we planned. Obviously, life got in the way,
weren't we?
And we were hoping, and we really did try. Obviously, things didn't quite work out as we wanted them to.
Yeah.
But we're back now. Hopefully, we can be as consistent as we want them to be, and hopefully, people can stick with us and enjoy the content that we're producing. But getting back to the second part of your question, which is the pertinent question, if you will, how was the World Cup? Now, I'm going to put the whole Qatar World Cup as a scenario to the side. Okay, I understand all the human rights issues, the World Cup being in January, because of how hot it gets in the summer there. So it had to be moved, being in the middle of the season, the anxieties. And
almost a madness, wasn't it, really? We thought.
It is. Of course it's been madness because you've got players playing so many games and then going straight into a World Cup, which these players live and die for, right?
Yeah.
And then coming back and finishing the season off.
Finishing the season, yeah.
Other players didn't go, right? And it's very, very difficult. But as a World Cup, total World Cup in itself, I think it was, footballing-wise, putting aside all of what I just said, was absolutely bloody brilliant. The games, the football on show was absolutely wonderful. And I have to say it was that because some of the games were crazy. Japan finishing top, Germany and Belgium getting
Yeah.
knocked out in the first round was
Those
brilliant to watch.
last group games where they hold them at the same time,
Yeah,
it almost felt like your knockout rounds had started early, because the way that some of those games, especially, I know you're going to touch on Germany in a couple of minutes, in a few seconds, but the way that sort of it was swinging from Japan qualifying, then
yeah.
so on and so forth, it was just amazing, wasn't it, really?
Oh mate, it was brilliant. It was absolutely the best football I've seen for a
And
long time.
Morocco, what a story for
Oh,
Morocco and
what a
Japan, and
story!
yeah.
There's something about the World Cup that just brings joy.
We love a good giant killer, don't we?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
We love an underdog. Yeah.
The underdog
Do
story
you
is
know
what
why?
we
Do you know why? Because we've been bloody underdogs for the last 10 or 15 years. That's why.
That's awesome, mate. We used to be the
We've
top
had
dog, now we're the
Arsenal.
underdog.
That's right. We used to be top dog, but now we're underdogs. Absolutely. No, listen, I would concur with you, Zed. I think
Yeah.
it's been. Look, I'll say it outright. I think it's probably been one of the best, if not the best, World Cup in my lifetime. I really will. I think
Mate.
I think you've got to think about also the organisation, the fans, and their enjoyment, and the lack of like nobody's heard of hooliganisms or arresting or alcohol, excessive alcohol
Mhm.
consumption. It's a lot. Even our sort of, because our England fans are generally known as being uh, the difficult fans. Let's diplomatically say that. But even social media now, because this is a social media World Cup, if you want to call it
It
that.
really
A lot of what the media has been telling us has been basically. Contradicted really by what's actually really going on the ground, because I think the media wanted to put this narrative. So, for example, the BBC never showed the opening ceremony. I mean, why they did that, God knows only. But the people on the ground were telling us about how friendly the Qataris are and welcoming they were, and bloody how organised was it? It was amazing.
It looked. Look, I think this is the most expensive World Cup in history. So if it was a bloody
Oh, probably, yeah.
if it was a bloody well organized,
You'd be worried.
You'd be
Yeah.
worried. They'd be taking the absolute. It cost a lot of money, and Qataris wanted, because it was for them. It was for show, right? They didn't give a thing about football, right?
That's it. They wanted to go on the map, didn't they?
They wanted to be recognized. Look, there was a history, a piece of history was made here, right, on this, and they wanted that. And overall, I would say I've really enjoyed the World Cup. But before we segue into any other topic, I have a question for you. Okay, is
Go on.
Messi now winning the World Cup?
Oh, I knew you were going to do this.
The GOAT or not?
I knew you were going to do this.
Conversation. Okay.
I knew you were going to do this. I mean, I wanted to talk about how our Gunners did and whatnot, but yeah, look, I knew you were going to take me into this, and that's why I wanted to ask the questions today, guys. But anyway, look, so I've generally always been a Ronaldo fan over Messi. I've always, as you know, Zed, when we've talked about this offline, I've always felt that Ronaldo, with the sort of longevity of his career and the different leagues that he's done it in, the sort of clutch moments that he has single-handedly won games for his respective teams, I've always felt that he had been the GOAT of this particular era.
Yeah.
However, I think what I saw with Messi in this World Cup, he had actually stolen those attributes really, and relatively Ronaldo had quite a quiet World Cup. It's fair to say, wasn't able to. I mean, to be fair, in those last couple of games, his coach didn't start Ronaldo, so that's telling in itself. But yeah, I think for Messi, those clutch moments, that kind of he didn't take games by the scruff of the neck. He took this World Cup by the scruff of his neck and said, I'm going to get us past the line. And he did.
And very well there.
And so I would say the questions, and Zed, from, in terms of greatest of all times, I mean, we're recording at a time where just this evening we've heard news of a GOAT of his own era, Pele, passing away. God rest his soul. And peace goes out to his family and everybody concerned with Pele. I'm not even sure if these guys come in the same conversation of some individuals who have played the game. However, what I would conclude on, in answer to your question, is that certainly of our era of football, in terms of what we've seen, in terms of the comparison between Messi and Ronaldo, is that Messi then takes that mantle.
Fair enough.
He has won the World Cup, and in terms of that debate between Messi and Ronaldo, Messi takes it
Okay, fair enough.
hands
Look,
down.
I think I will agree with you on the fact that it's forget greatest full-time greatest of the era, right? Let's put that spin
Yeah.
on it. And to be fair, I want to finish this before we go into Arsenal talk. Then the World Cup final, one of the best games
Oh, what a game!
I've ever seen, and I felt like that World Cup final was a passing of the torch from the greatest player of the previous generation to the greatest player of the next generation, from Messi to Mbappe. I don't think there can be any questions. Haaland is good,
What a player!
Mbappe showed
What
why
a
he
player!
is.
We're fortunate, aren't we, to be witnessing
Yes,
this
we are. Yes, we are.
and seeing that transition, because we've seen in the I mean, you know, I've grown up watching sort of in the days of Romario and R9. Again, this is why when I'm talking about goats, and I've got a few years on you, so it's a difficult comparison. When I've actually watched R9 Ronaldo, none of these guys, I mean, you know, okay, you can bring stats and the longevity and all those side of things into it, but on bare raw talent alone, I don't think any of these fellas touch R9, you know. But what I do say, and I agree with you, is that Mbappe, for me, reminds me of that, you know, that just the way he bundles through and he
Yeah,
just takes
the
everybody
raw
out,
pace
and
and
that
skill.
pace. It's not just the pace, but it's that kind of aggression and that sort of that kind of, doesn't matter who's in the way, I'm going to run through. Yeah, I hope he goes on. I mean, he will be, if he goes on to have a career as long as any of the two we've talked about, he will be the all-time World Cup
He will
scorer. I
be.
mean, it's scary. He is scary, Mbappe. But yeah, fair mention. Fair
Yeah,
mention, Zed. I think it's one to watch, isn't it?
absolutely. I think this is a nice place to finish the World Cup discussion on. To say that
Yeah.
he will be the next generation's the greatest player of the next generation. Just to put it simply.
Yeah. Yeah, Zed, I mean, moving on to obviously our own sort of players being at the World Cup, obviously, it's fair to say Saka was Saka. He did his usual England role, smashed it, scored a couple of goals, really, really impressed. But again, he was a form player. Martinelli, Jesus, obviously, we're going to come on to Jesus in a second in respect of his injury. But yeah, Xhaka. I mean, talk to me about Xhaka. I mean, you know, he had a relatively good World Cup as well. I don't think anybody expected Switzerland to get us further to where they did, but you know, it was a good run out for him as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think Xhaka is a very important player for Switzerland, always has been. He's their captain. I think he did as good as we expected him to do. To be fair, nobody was expecting Switzerland to go very far, very deep into the World Cup. Same thing with Ghana, with Thomas Partey. They did the job. We knew they were going to be out quickly and home
Japan
healthy.
was surprising, weren't they, with Tommy?
I mean, Japan was surprising with Tomiyasu. Thankfully, he's back as well. They were all healthy, fit. I think we were disappointed, and I'm sure you felt this way as well. We talked about it before. The role that Gabriel Martinelli played, or didn't play rather, for Brazil was very disappointing, especially in the game against Croatia. I thought they could have really used a player like him to, you know, break down the Croatian low block, but they never used him, and I think they paid the consequences for it. So
yeah,
as
I mean,
sad as it is
if
for
England
Brazil,
didn't win it, you know, and obviously our boys didn't come back with medals, then I was hoping that certainly Gabby and Jesus would have come back with medals, because they were certainly tipped as the favourites. But I agree with you. We talked about this earlier as well, that that last, I mean, that the repeated use of Rafinha over Martinelli had frustrated me. And but what I'd thought is, I thought through the group stages is that maybe he's saving Martinelli for the big games. Well, the game that they got knocked out, Martinelli wasn't used at all.
no.
So I was kind of like, well, serves you right, really. And I did feel, because I think in the same way as we spoke about Messi earlier, it would have been nice for your Neymar and then your youngsters like kind of sort of Martinelli and co. I think there's some great players, haven't they, Brazil? But
They
certainly,
have.
our boys, our gunners, coming back with World Cup medals would have really hyped up our the rest of our season. And then you've got Saliba as well, who unfortunately, quite surprisingly, because again, if you look at form, and I'm not saying Varane did much wrong, but you'd have to say that Saliba's been the form player through in the Premier League in comparison to Varane, and yet it didn't really get to play many minutes, did he?
No, I think, look, so there's two aspects there. So number one, with the Brazilian team, we've already touched on that. I think their coach had a certain plan they wanted to go
Yes.
with.
Yeah.
I think my feelings on Rafinha when he was linked with Arsenal.
Yeah.
Decent player, but I never thought he'll be the starter, and he shouldn't be. And clearly,
No.
it shows for Brazil he shouldn't be the starter either.
Yeah, and he missed loads of chances, didn't he, in that game?
Exactly. I think he's a good player, right? But he's, to me, an inferior Riyad Mahrez, right? He's not up to that quality. So repeatedly sticking with him was not the right idea from Brazil, from my perspective. Obviously, I'm biased towards Martinelli, always going to be.
Yeah, you'd say that. The bias apart, though, I mean, Martinelli's been playing against low blocks pretty much many of the games in the Premier League season, he's been unlocking those defences, hasn't he? And so you'd say that there's a level of incompetence really with that Brazil coach that he chooses Rafinha over him. And you're right, we are biased because we're Arsenal supporters, but call a spade, you know.
Yeah, no, look, fair point. But they got what they paid for, essentially. Unfortunate for them, but it was a stupid decision to leave. Your best player, Neymar, for the last penalty, that was plain stupid as well.
Yeah.
But I think everyone touched on that already, so there's no point of that. I think going back to Saliba thing, you can't really fault Deschamps. Man took him to the World Cup final, wasn't afraid to make changes, taking Dembele and Giroud off in the first half in a World Cup bloody final, the toughest game. So there's nothing I would say against Didier Deschamps. He is world-class manager, man stunning as a player.
Took his team to the final. And Saliba will get his time, won't he?
Exactly. So in that regard, I can't say much.
Let's talk a bit of Arsenal now then. Let's get straight into the Arsenal bit. And this is why we wanted to sort of link the Jesus thing really to sort of how were you feeling? What were your emotions, Zed, when you found out about the Jesus? Because they were talking about 3 months straight away, weren't they?
Yeah. Honestly, I was afraid that it may be the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my gut feeling. Yeah, right. As soon as I said, I was like, oh damn, that's it. Arsenal's title challenge, everything is gone because this is our form player. It may not be goal scoring form, but what he adds to the team.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. In that press,
he leads the press, doesn't he? I mean, he's a leader on the pitch. He leads the press. He's pressing from the front. And I mean, I watched the last game before the World Cup, Zed at Wolves, away at Wolves, obviously local team here, and watching him live, he's immense. I mean, the way that he lasts 90 minutes as well, Zed, with his continuous pressing, he's a fit player. He's a very, very fit player.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was like you, big loss. What are we going to do?
Yeah, big loss. What we're going to do, but thankfully it's only 3 months and he could be back for the clutch part of the season where we need him, and we need him to be in goal scoring form. But thankfully it's not that bad. But yeah, I was scared.
I'm going to make a prediction here, which many of my Arsenal co-supporters, stroke bloggers, stroke basically other gunners on the internet and whatever. My feeling is that I don't think we're going to see Gabby Jesus this season, and I know
that's a big one.
And when I say I don't think we're going to see him, I'm not saying that we're not going to be seeing him play. I don't think we're going to be seeing that Jesus. You know, when you've got sort of operated knee injuries, you generally need a season or around about a season to get back in the swing of things, or certainly I'd say he'd be ready for pre-season next season. And I'm not saying that he won't play a part. I'm saying that he
Mhm.
probably will make the bench and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I do think, and obviously a lot depends on what we do in the transfer window and whatnot, is that if we have our striker solution and we're continuing to fight for the league at that point, I think that he will be used sparingly, and he won't be. I don't think we're going to be seeing the same impactful Jesus as we have done. Knee injuries are serious things, Zed,
It
especially when
is. It is. It
they're
is.
operated on.
Yeah. Look, as we've
What player?
said,
You
he's.
tell me, Zed. What player
Mm.
have you seen at this stage of a season that has had an operation on their knee and come back to play a very, very significant part and start in games straight away? I mean, I know they're pinpointing him for Feb. You give me a. I can't think of one.
No. Look. Your point is fair, right? I don't think he'll be 100% back fit, starting every game, lasting 70 or 80 odd minutes that he plays every single game in the Premier League. But just to have him on the bench, right? Just to have him on the bench and available even for 20, 30 minutes, right, would be beneficial to the Arsenal team. But we'll obviously see. Hopefully, it's a lot better than what we think.
Yeah.
Right. Hopefully, he is fit and back, and they don't rush him, because while I want this to be the season that wins us the league again, I don't want it to be at the cost of this guy's career.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah,
think we'd all
because
agree.
he is for the next 5 years the main man, not for this season only. Okay.
Yeah.
But let's move on to talking more about his replacement, actually, because I want to talk about the West Ham game. What did you think? How did you feel about
I was
the first game?
nervous. I can't lie. I was nervous because I tell you what, I thought not just the Jesus injury, because I think that had been some weeks in preparation, and you sort of think, all right, well, do you know what? You're looking at Nketiah. I think Nketiah's generally been poor when he's been brought on as a sub, but when he started, he's actually not got a bad goal record. He filled the
No.
gap towards the end of the season, so I wasn't really too worried. What I was worried about was that there was a couple of dodgy results in that. I was about to call it a pre-season, that mini.
It was a preseason.
The mini pre-season, right before we were coming back, and I think there was that sort of a goalless draw against Oxford, the behind closed doors one, that kind of made me think. When I saw some of the names that had played on the team sheet, I thought, gosh, one thing that kind of, this from previous pods when we've spoken, is what took us into a brilliant start of this season was our pre-season. We were sort of unbeaten. We had a brilliant. I think there was one game we lost out in the States, but when we were playing our full team, we were brilliant. And that kind of, and what I was a little bit worried is that we've got kind of players that had been away, so your Sakas and your Martinellis and Salibas and whatnot, versus a relatively fresh-ish West Ham side that had 2 or 3 players away, but kind of, if you look at Rice,
I think it's just Declan Rice, right? There's no...
Rice. No, there's the Brazilian that had played. Paqueta.
He played every game, actually.
And then when they'd scored early, I thought, oh my God, here we go. This is our season.
That's the season, bye-bye.
But only, if I'm honest with you, because actually I was actually very impressed by how the game started, because Arsenal were knocking at the door. They really did everything but put the ball in the net.
Yeah, I think that goal, I have to say the penalty was very, very soft.
It was soft.
It was very, very soft. But fair enough. There is slight contact. Jared Bourne goes down.
He kind of stumbles, though, doesn't he, really?
He
doesn't go down because of the contact so much. He kind of goes down because he's lost his balance. But then one could argue, the ref might argue,
he lost his balance because of
the contact. But look, we've been given soft penalties, haven't we? So you take it, don't you, really?
I mean, it's part of the game, man. I think, look, it's a soft penalty, but is it a penalty? Yes, it is a penalty. Okay, they put it away. Said Benrahma puts it away. But overall, whether the first half or second half, I saw Arsenal being in total control. Right?
Absolutely.
It's not like the Arsenal of old. So this is the funny thing, is like me and brother watching the game, and he's like, oh, 1-0 down, so Arsenal's just gonna go, right? They're just gonna fold. I'm like, no. For the first time,
your brother doesn't know ball. Let's be straight here. He doesn't know about Arteta ball, does he? Let's be straight.
No, he doesn't. But the thing is, from his perspective, for 15 bloody years, if you had put this Arsenal team against
course.
West Ham and they were
Did
1-0 down,
Yeah.
you would bet your house on saying Arsenal losing this,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it'd
And
either go one or two ways. They'd put 2 banks of 4, low block, and we'd be hitting the post, everything but the middle of the net, right?
exactly,
Or we'd fold,
yeah,
and
exactly.
we'd concede another couple of goals. So yeah, ultimately we'd end up losing or drawing, wouldn't we?
Exactly, and it wouldn't be. But with this team, I didn't feel that way, and I was
No,
clearly to him
neither
like,
did
mate,
I.
no, just wait for it. They're gonna come back after halftime, and they're gonna be gassed. And let's just look at the first goal with Saka. Let's be honest, Odegaard will get the assist, but boy, that was a rubbish, absolutely rubbish shot.
It was
Okay,
awful.
he was attempting to curl one into the top corner. What he gets is a scuff, and what happens is it luckily falls to Saka, and
Mm.
Saka, being Saka, does not panic, just
And that's
rolls
when they
into the net.
started playing, didn't they, Zed? And that's when, like, it was. I mean, they'd come out quickly out of the blocks, but as soon
Yes,
as
they
that
did.
goal went in, it was like just the way they were playing. It was like West Ham almost kind of felt this is gone for us now. You know?
Yeah, it was. It was. I think it was just the sheer pressure because West Ham couldn't get on the ball. Even in the first half, to be honest, the penalty came at a break, right? So they weren't in the game. They were just playing on the break because Arsenal were just in total control.
Well, they
And
were
that's
fearing us, and that's why I
exactly.
think what Arteta really, and we'll talk about in a minute the evolution of how smart he's becoming and how superior as a coach he's becoming. But I think what he'd done is, and good coaches, they have that intuition, don't they? They
Yeah.
see how teams set up and they go, they're scared.
Yeah.
And they were scared because actually a good team continues with that momentum, but they'd actually set up to hit us on the break. And to be fair, in that first half, there were a few instances other than the goal that they scored where they were sort of getting in behind.
They
But
were.
football and luck. But that second half was completely reversed, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think you have to say fortune favors the bold, right? So you have to be bold to be able to get luck. And to be fair, I'm not even going to bother reading out the stats because it was just all one way. It was total control,
Yeah.
total domination. It was just, I think Declan Rice in his post-match interview summed it up very nicely, and he said, "Look, they had us across the field.
I
There
do
was nothing
like
we
him.
could do."
I
Obviously,
like his personality. I like his footballing kind of. He just seems
he's
a really
straightforward.
nice guy. He's a
He's
straightforward
straightforward.
guy. He
Straightforward
doesn't
guy.
beat around the bush. But then that second goal happens. Partey wins a brilliant tackle after losing the ball in the middle
Absolutely,
of the
man.
park
Yeah.
off Declan Rice.
Yeah.
The ball gets moved over. Martinelli on the left-hand side, left foot shot, near post. Our ex-keeper. Whether he did that for us, I'm not saying anything, right?
No, he didn't.
But he gets beaten at the near post, and
Game
there we
over.
are, game over. And it
Game
literally
over.
is game over, then, isn't it? Really,
Yeah.
we could
I
have
mean,
scored 5 or 6 in that game.
yeah, look, to be honest, I think it's a very, very poor attempt from Fabianski. Martinelli's
Yeah.
shot is out of nothing. He's going to do what any forward is in that position, which is hit it as hard as he can,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the only option he has for near post. Everything else is blocked. And Fabianski does not color himself in glory there. That's a really rubbish body movement. He should do better,
Yeah.
right? But I'm not going to complain. Martinelli scores, and then third goal, Eddie rolls. And I have to say, rolls the defender.
That was class.
That was absolute class.
I tell you, I have to give props to because we've discussed Odegaard and his poor shot, but
Yeah.
he in that second half said he was immense, was he not? I mean,
Oh
he
yeah,
was
look,
absolutely
Odegaard.
just running. I mean, I don't we've been there before. We don't want to
Yeah.
use the O word, do we? We don't want to use O, but this is everything that we wanted Özil to do in the longevity of his career,
Yes, we
and
did.
we've got it in
You
Odegaard.
have to say, and this is where I'm going to back Özil a bit, right? When he came in and when he was in his prime, the age of Odegaard, 23, 24, 25, right? He was absolutely class. The only thing that let down Özil was his perception of work rate and his fit for the system, right? Arteta plays Odegaard in a system which is beneficial to him as that
That's
right-sided
true.
eight.
Correct. Yeah.
Özil was half the time played on a wing by Wenger because he didn't know how to play him, right? He was never in his position, but I don't want to go down that as a rabbit hole, right? But Odegaard was absolutely great. He deserves to be the captain. He pulls the strings. He's there to do what he needs to do,
The
right?
touch for
And that
Eddie.
allows Xhaka to
Oh
perform.
God,
Oh,
sublime,
that
wasn't it?
goal was
It's
absolutely
just
beautiful. You know
like
what?
he
Yeah,
saw that before it was happening. He didn't put his foot on
yeah,
the
he
ball.
saw
He
it.
didn't control it. The ball came into him. He just
Just
finessed it, didn't he? He rolled it, didn't
smooth,
he?
smooth.
But talk to me about Eddie. I mean, how important not just the goal and the quality, but for Eddie, and let's say the elephant in the room again, right? A lot of our fans, and probably including you and I, right, were saying Eddie's not the answer. He can't lead the line. And there may still be some arguments out there that he may not be the answer. And I don't think any Premier League team would continue the rest of the season if Jesus isn't going to make it back in 3 months, for example. You're at a transfer window. I think 100% of Premier League teams would say, well, Eddie needs a backup, doesn't he? Or,
Yeah,
we need some form of backup, because if Eddie gets injured,
was
we're really in
screwed.
trouble, you know?
Yes.
So tell me how important that was for Eddie scoring that goal and his confidence.
I think, you know what? And this is me going back to our podcast about last year, this time, right? When we
Yeah.
were really getting into the swing of this in season one. And we had this conversation as well, whether Eddie had a future at Arsenal at that point. And I think what I said to you back then just came to me right now when we were talking about it, is like deja vu, right? Is that he has never been properly given a run to make a case for himself.
You said that.
Yeah. So he's now getting it. And I think he proved it towards the end of last season that he can score the goals. And now
11
he's
in
getting
11.
Exactly. So he's
11
now
in
getting
11 starts. Yeah.
at home, right? So what I'm saying is he's getting the opportunity now, and he should take it, right? He's a great player, right? I remember him bursting onto the scene, scoring those 2 headers back all the way in the Carabao Cup, I think, against Nottingham Forest. This is going back years now, right? This is when Arsene Wenger was still the manager. And we saw the potential of this guy, what he had. I think he needs time. He's still young, but he has the capacity to be a very, very good Arsenal player. Right?
I think he's not given a very much of a chance because he's not that shiny Brazilian name,
He's not the Rolls Royce, he's the Toyota, isn't he?
Yeah, and that's the thing. But I have to say, I mean, even watching him play against West Ham, Zed, he's bulked up. He's a lot taller.
Grown
There's a
up.
bit
He's
of a
grown up a
swagger
bit, yeah.
about him, isn't there? The way he's moving around the pitch, his touches. Look, before we move on, if Jesus doesn't make it, and we are going to talk transfers later, guys, so don't worry, we'll get onto that. Do you think he can score the goals we need to win the league this season?
Not alone. I think the key point in this is, and this is me going back to when everyone was worried, and I was worried about Jesus as well. What you have to understand in Arteta ball is not about just the individuals. That's why Mikel Arteta worked so hard to get rid of Aubameyang, did not renew Alex Lacazette, got rid of Ozil, because he no longer wanted individuals. What he wants is a team. So whether what you call Ben White plays right back or Tomiyasu plays right back, the performance drop isn't there, because that's what City are. That's the blueprint, right? It's about individuals. Yes, of course you're going to need a blockbuster forward. That's what Erling Haaland has proven at Man City as well. But if we don't have, let's say, Jesus back for the remainder of the season, Eddie's leading the line, it only makes sense, and it's a logical decision to have another backup third choice striker. Someone who's much more experienced, someone who doesn't mind being on the bench, can come on for the last 20-30 minutes, can play the Carabao Cup games, can play we're out of the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup games, the UEFA Europa League games, right? So someone like, it's a lazy, what you call comparison, but someone like an Olivier Giroud from AC Milan, if he doesn't agree a new deal, to say, mate, you want to come back for a season and a half, right? You can be our backup forward. whenever we need you, we chuck you on and put balls in the box, right?
Yeah, I feel you. I think for me, this is his chance now, and
This is his chance.
and I think this is his real chance to put respect. Not that I feel he or many may feel that he needs to, because he might say, what's your main guy be doing?
Yeah,
He hasn't scored in what, 6 games?
6,
Premier
7
Leagues
games, I
game,
think.
yeah,
Yeah.
6, 7 games, yeah. I am here. Started 11, scored 11, which is a
Mhm.
brilliant record, isn't it? Really,
It
and
is. It is.
that's Premier League games as well, by the way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or is it Premier League games? I'd have to check that stat. Right, I
I
don't
don't know
think
if
it
it's
is.
Premier League games,
Yeah,
but I think it's 11 in
it's 11
11.
starts. It's 11
Yeah.
starts, right? Which for any professional footballer is a very, very good record, right? I think the next penultimate sort of conversation, which we were going to sort of move into, is the next few games and how he does in those games. And I think,
Yes.
we remember, don't we? We scored 2 against Chelsea
hmm
last season, when that real corner turner, really, where we thought, this is it, Champions League is on now, right? But we won't talk
The
about that and
hopes. The
how
hopes.
painful that was, yeah. But look, Zed, we've got some really. I mean, this is it now. This is the penultimate,
Yeah. This.
because we've got. We should have played City before the break, before we
Yes.
broke up for the World Cup, but that was obviously a delayed game, and we've got them in February. But before we have
Yeah.
City, and by the way, that's not, guys, going to be a season decider, because we are at this moment in time 5 points clear of City, as things stand. But I do think that this is going to be a very, very testing time for the Arsenal. The next
Yes.
game that we have is against Brighton, and
Brighton. Brighton away at
that
the
is away,
Amex.
and we
Yeah.
often struggle. We struggle against Brighton guys at home, so
Yes, we did.
that's going to be a telling game, to say the least. Okay, but I think, and I'm going to get your views in a second. I think we'll get something, and I think we'll be all right. But the game after that, guys, we have the big one, the main one,
Very big one.
where we always struggle, and we struggled there last season at a really, really penultimate time of the season,
Yeah.
and that's Tottenham away.
No. You're missing a game. So
Sorry, Newcastle at home. Sorry,
Newcastle at home.
Newcastle at home first, and then Tottenham away.
Yes.
So, yes,
Yeah.
sorry, let me rewind that then a little bit, right? I think, Zed, what I should have said is Newcastle are bloody scary at this moment in time.
Right now, Newcastle
They are the
scary,
form team.
and they are the form team, and you have to give props to Eddie Howe. Regardless of how much money he spent, he's getting a tune out of the likes of Joel Linton and Miguel Almiron, right? That is nothing but great coaching. I think people underestimated him when he came back to Newcastle, saying, you know what, he got relegated with Bournemouth, he wasn't
I
good.
think they're going to finish in the top 4 this season.
I
really do.
I think hold on about Man U yet. As much as I don't like Man U,
I think. Look, you've got to remember, they've got unlimited pockets, and so they're going to do something in the transfer window as well, right?
They will do. But I don't know. I think, look, you've still got Manchester United, and you've got Spurs knocking on the door as well. Newcastle have every chance to be in the top 4, but I think they're probably not ready for it yet. I think next season they're fully going to be a contender for it if they keep going the way they are. But if they get it this time,
let's hope so, Zed. Let's hope so, because we wouldn't want it to be at our expense in any case. But
no.
No. I mean, you're right. I mean, look, they're coming in on some really, really good form, right?
They are.
They've got some and they've beaten some really good teams. I think they've beaten Tottenham along the way as well.
They have. They drew with City 3-3, mate.
And they've drawn with City. So I think if we take this game lightly, we could be embarrassed. But I don't think that we're gonna take the game lightly, But having said that, if there's a game I worry about in our next few, because I'll be honest with you, when we skip onto the Tottenham game in a second, I think we're going to beat Tottenham.
I think Tottenham are a lot easier perspective to play right now than the Newcastle are.
If you look at what Tottenham are doing at the moment, Zed, conceding. Well, they're conceding sometimes up to 2 or 3 goals first before coming back, and I think that's exactly what will happen when we go there. I think but I think what we'll do is we'll have enough technical nous to actually manage the game when Tottenham start coming back into it. But then, having said that, it's a North London derby, guys. So
Exactly.
anything can happen.
And we don't have a great record at the Tottenham Hotspur
What
Stadium.
a time to change that, though, Zed.
We shall see. But you know what, mate? Let's just rewind. We've got 31st of December.
Yeah.
We've got Brighton away. Then
What do you reckon's going to happen there?
we should get 3 points there. The way we are right
should,
now.
But will
should.
we?
Yes. Confidently saying yes.
Okay.
Right. Newcastle is a different perspective. I think that may be a draw. The way
Would
they're
you
playing.
take a draw there?
I would take a draw there.
Really?
But that's drop points.
Let me ask you a
City come
question.
back in.
Let me ask you a question.
Go on.
If we beat Newcastle convincingly, and this is the question, isn't it? Really, because
Yeah, go on.
they are the team at the moment. I think if anyone beats Newcastle at the moment is a massive achievement because they're that good at the moment, right? At this moment in time, if we
I think
beat
in this
them,
moment in time, there's two teams that you need to be afraid of, or that are in form. Newcastle, and as much as I hate to say it, other than Man City, is Manchester United.
I'm not sure if I'm agreeing there.
Okay.
And I'll start with why. Forget Man United for a second. I
You always want to do that, don't you?
Yeah. I do. I watched City last night against Leeds. And Leeds were poor in parts of the game. I mean, they gave one goal literally to City, right? And City were doing their usual City thing. They were holding the ball, they were moving it around, and they were creating chances. And Meslier had made some decent saves. You know, he kept them in the game. But this weren't the City of last season for me.
No, they're still
They weren't
a bit lethargic.
fluid. And actually, I'll be honest with you, if there'd have been another 10 minutes on that game, I potentially may have seen Leeds at least score another. I mean, there was one chance that I can't remember his name. It just missed. He toe poked it, and it just missed the post by inches. 3-2. Home at Leeds, sort of away at Leeds, and anything can happen in the Premier League, right? Where I see City's weakness at the moment is seeing out games. I would say that
they're a bit
Arsenal,
shaky.
yeah, I would say that Arsenal are far superior than City in seeing out games. Oh yes, far superior. I think our ability to manage games compared to City, and others might be, berating me for making this comment. And look, I'm only telling you about at this moment in time from the football that I've watched. I'd say that we are a better team than City at this moment in time. And I would say that once we take the necessary leads and we go on to win games in a much more convincing manner than City. Just to touch on your second point with Man United, I'll be honest with you, I didn't watch the game against Nottingham Forest, but I heard they played well and Rashford played really well, and that's why I put him in my fantasy team for the next game week, but that's for another day. But you've got to remember that was only Nottingham Forest, and Manchester United, in terms of their results, they've been doing well. Before the break, weren't convinced with all of their performances as such. I feel United on the end of a battering soon by somebody, and maybe that could be us. With the game following
didn't tell
the
ourselves in
London
glory
derby.
in Old Trafford, did we? Early in the season. I mean, really.
No, but we're a different team now, aren't we?
Look, we were a different team.
We're a team that's learned from that, I think.
We have, but in Old Trafford, we were naive. It wasn't the quality of Manchester United that beat us. It was naivety of Arteta that led us down. But he's learned. But anyway, let's just look at the games until 15th of Feb.
Yeah.
Which is Manchester City. Before that, we have Brighton, Newcastle, Spurs, Manchester United, Everton, Brentford. Right? Out of those, I think, while I take your point on Manchester United, it is at home now, so we should be able to get something from that game. Right? Tottenham away is going to be a tough game. Newcastle at home is going to be a tough game. But
so should we do predictions for that then?
Go on. So let's do Brighton versus Arsenal away. What do you think?
I think we'll win that. and it will probably be sort of a 2-1.
2-1.
It will be a
Newcastle
close
versus
game.
Arsenal.
Yeah, that's where I'm probably in agreement with you, to be honest with you. I don't think, and that's why I'm saying that if we did beat them, I think we need to be seriously thinking about, actually we've got a real good chance of winning the league this season, just based on performances, right?
I
And
wouldn't go
benchmarks.
that far,
But it's
but
too
I would
early to
say
say.
it's
It's too
too.
early to say.
I wouldn't go that far, but I'll say yes, it's a good performance. But for me, it's probably going to be
I'm going to predict a 2-2 there.
2-2. Okay, Spurs
I'm going to
away.
agree with you that that's going to be a Desmond.
A draw. Yeah.
And Spurs, I'm going to say 3-1.
3-1
I'm
to
going to say
Arsenal.
Harry Kane penalty, and
Oh, it's the case, isn't it? Yeah.
Harry Kane penalty. I'm going to say that Saka will score, Odegaard will score, and Martinelli will score.
Oh, not your boy Nketiah.
No, I don't think Nketiah will score, but
Okay,
who knows?
I'll break that down another time. But
yeah, I think we'll win that, and I think we will win that convincingly. But I don't think that we will necessarily be. This is just a prediction. I don't think we'll be tested very much in that. I think there'll be more of a test in the Newcastle game, if I'm honest with you.
Most likely. But you never know about Tottenham. They just have a habit of
Yeah,
turning up
against us.
It's
And then
not
who's
London
next?
derby,
Who's
mate.
after that? Did you say
Man U at
Man
home.
United? Yeah, I think it will be a tough game because we generally have a bit of a psychological block when they come and when we go. But I think we'll win. I think they'll be
2-1.
worried about us. Yeah, I think that will be a good performance. We'll put a performance on for the fans. And you've got to remember, by that point we might have. We're going to talk about transfers in a minute, guys. We might have, have a couple of new personnel added to the side. We hope.
Yes, entirely possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then who's
I'm going to
next?
rush through the next two. Everton away at Goodison Park.
Yeah, I think we win that easy. Yeah.
Okay. 5-0.
I wouldn't go that far, but I think a nice 3-0.
3-0. Brentford at home.
Brentford at home, I think we win that 2-0. Easy.
2-0.
Again, yeah.
I'm not going to ask you about the Man City game just yet. We'll break that down when we get close to it.
Well, you can't really say anything. I mean, I'm being. I'm probably going ahead of ourselves with even these predictions, but I think we will drop points at Newcastle fundamentally, and potentially at Tottenham. Although I think we are gonna wipe Tottenham, and I think that's where the media starts then really taking us serious.
Okay, look, fair enough. I think I agree with you on most of them. I'm just not sure about the Spurs and the Man United games because historically it's been a bit of a bogey games for us.
Yeah.
Newcastle, I think, will be a draw, but I have that slight hope that we may be able to get a result out of it.
Yeah.
But thanks for that, mate. Let's see what happens. We've got the next game in a couple of days, so we can come back here in a couple of days and see how we got on.
You can berate me, viewers, if for my real wild predictions. But look, let's move on then, Zed. I mean, we're getting quite deep into this now, and we covered that well, though, really. And you're right. Let's leave the City game to
when the time comes.
So maybe arguably everybody's favourite part of the show when we talk about transfers. There's growing optimism. And maybe Zed, we need to do an entire show on transfers, I think.
Well, I think we can cover it a lot more later on, but
yeah. I think let's talk about it offline, but maybe let's talk about something a bit more regular. We always say this, don't we, guys? Something a bit more regular for the transfer window when it opens.
Yeah.
But look, I mean, fundamentally, let me just share this with you because I don't think you were privy to this news. Certainly in our prep, that the tier ones, i.e. your Ornsteins and your Fabrizios, certainly Ornstein was on NBC before the City game last night, and he was pretty clear, and he's a very reliable journalist when it comes to Arsenal transfer news, that the two targets that Arsenal are looking to secure are Mudryk and João Felix from Atletico Madrid. and
Yeah.
Mudryk has been sort of well documented on from Dynamo Kiev. I want to say he's a 21-year-old talent. Plays on the left wing primarily.
Yeah.
Very, very pacey, very, very skillful. Great shot on him as well. Really, really done some great things, not only in the Ukrainian league, but also in the Champions League as well, which is where I think he has certainly earned his fame. Great performances against Celtic, Real Madrid, notably. And he really wants us. Now, I don't know if you
He
were aware
does.
of
He
this, Zed.
does.
In the
I
game
was.
against West Ham, he was
He was
actually
watching.
watching the game and
He was
actually
watching. Yeah.
televising his comments and his views and his liking of our scoring on his Instagram stories,
He was. He
which
was
kind of
indeed.
is, and Fabrizio is just saying it straight in the tweet. Mudryk wants Arsenal. Now
Yes, he does.
this is potentially, guys, going to really help, because when you have players putting pressure on their own boards and their own teams and management structures, that tends to have a really good because the club are resigned to let you go. But we do know the elephant in the room here is that Dynamo Kiev are a very I'm not saying they're renowned to be difficult, but they've got a great star on their hands. They've got a great player, and they feel that they shouldn't let him go cheap. He's
No.
certainly a player that's got a high ceiling and going to do things wherever he goes, wherever he moves to. He is going to be a star of the future. I think that's quite fair to say. You can tell sometimes with just his build and his technique that he's going to be a good player. But let's start with Mudryk, Zed. Let's bring you in on this now. Is what do you know of this fella? And I know we have discussed him before, but how realistic is this? Could this be? Certainly from the journalist point of view, it looks like it's something that could happen. It's Arsenal's #1 target. But I really want to know is how would he change our season? And second part of the question is why is he more important than maybe going and securing someone like a Zaha, who would hit the ground running and maybe take us and give us the goals that may help us challenge for the title?
Okay, number one, I'm going to start with the Zaha thing. Please, for God's sake, that ship has sailed. Let it go. Okay?
There's an
This is not
argument
the
for it.
plan. No. There's no argument.
There's no
for it.
argument.
The way
There's no argument. There's no argument to Zed. Right, okay.
No.
No Zaha.
Zaha's over. Okay? Zaha's not coming. It won't happen because his profile does not match anymore. If you look at the way Arsenal have done business in the last 2 or 3 windows, he does not match it. Reason being, he's a lot older. He will demand a lot higher salary. The Arsenal profile now is to pay even a bit more transfer fee than necessary, i.e. Ben White, but have him on lower wages, right? Younger players who will follow the coach's philosophy and will do what the team wants and to be molded together. That is the philosophy for the transfers right now. So Zaha is gone, right? That's the same reason they won't bring in a experienced striker to be a backup, right? They will stick to their guns. Arteta will stick to what he wants, which is more likely to be Mudryk, right? And what he adds to this team is dynamics, right? So if he plays on the left or the right, right, he provides backup to Saka, Martinelli, and enables Martinelli to move centrally while he can take the wing. So you automatically have a striker backup. You can take Eddie off, you can put Martinelli on, you have that rotation option at the front line, right? And the way Arteta's front line plays, it's very fluid. So you'll see Gabby Jesus being out on the wing a lot of the time and Martinelli cutting in.
You do.
Right? So that is what Mudryk will add. And the other dynamic part he will add is that he has got unbelievable pace.
Oh, he does. He's
right?
blistering.
So he has the ability to get behind opponents. So when Arsenal are playing superior teams like City or Liverpool, and you want to play on the break sometime, you have someone who has the ability to get in behind, but not just pick up the ball and run with it, to be able to dribble and create something out of nothing and be able to finish it. So he will add dynamics to the attack. And being 21 means that he has the ability to grow with this team that Arteta wants to do. That's the main point that they want to do. They want to mold this team
Yeah.
to be winners, right? So I think Mudryk is a very, very good signing from what I know of him, which is very, very little, only from the Champions League. I don't watch the, Ukrainian league,
Yeah.
so I can't pretend to know what's going on. He's 21, I know that, but Shakhtar will be hard to do business with. What I don't want Arsenal to do is pay 80 odd million for this guy and have the same problem that we had with Pepe. Right?
Yeah.
When you put a price tag on a
There's
player,
a risk. There's a risk in any transfer.
there's a
isn't there?
risk, exactly. There's a risk in any transfer. So I think, according to Fabrizio Romano, Arsenal put in a £55 million bid package together, all included and all that kind of stuff, add-ons.
One bid's gone in. It's
One
been
bid's gone
rejected
in.
today, but there's talk of a second bid going in, which is
It
more
will do.
akin to what Shakhtar want. And I do apologise to the viewers. It's Shakhtar Donetsk that
Yeah.
I should not Dynamo Kiev. I always
No,
get those two teams mixed
Shakhtar.
up. Shakhtar Donetsk, yeah, not an easy club to deal with.
No.
And I say that because Zed, they just do everything. They're a little bit remind you of. Who was it we were linked to when their president just kept on coming out publicly? Ours club.
Yeah. The Lyon president.
Lyon. And every time Arsenal would be, they'd come out and just shout everything out public, and these things are supposed to be secret. They're doing a little bit of that at the moment, but I mean, look, what we have got going in our favour is, and this is what enthuses me, is that, and I think this is another string to Arteta's bow. He wants players that love us, that
Yes.
want to come and play and got the attitude. And what I am sort of obviously through my own research as well, I'm hearing that he's quite a religious, humble young boy, right? Off the pitch, but he's
Yeah.
got that killer instinct on the pitch as well, which is your perfect combination because, Arteta's a young coach and he has been criticised for not being able to handle those Aubameyangs and the Ozils and the bigger players of the football world. But what he's got is he's got a humble bunch, as you say, of young players that aren't demanding too much, hard workers, good ethic, good values, really. And that's why, bringing it back to Eddie for a second as well, Zed, why does he constantly keep on defending? Every time that the media talk to him, he says, because I watch him in training every day, he talks about Eddie and the human being, and you wonder, and the comparison that's about to come in a minute now is why people are saying, well, why did we not go for Cody Gakpo?
Look,
a lot cheaper, 37 million. Liverpool just secured him.
You assume a lot cheaper, but remember, it depends on the player. You want to go for a player that wants to come to you.
Yes.
And you've identified. See, the thing is, what people need to understand about football is transfers don't happen overnight.
No.
These players have been scouted, shortlisted, watched again and again to how they fit in the system. They've had conversations with their agents, with their families, with a lot of things. Cody Gakpo had Liverpool talking to him probably for 6 months minimum.
So you say that, right? But he's also been talking and flirting with Manchester United.
Of course he is.
I think there was conversations with Leeds as well. So that's the point I'm trying to make here is that actually, if I'm honest with you, towards the end of that World Cup, he's Dutch. There's a Dutch coach at Manchester United. It was, for me, nailed on that he was going to join Manchester United. In fact, they were talking to him in the summer.
That's the thing.
You know?
That's the thing. So Manchester United spent 100 million on Anthony. They were not going to be able to go out and spend another 50 million because remember, there's the English tax and there's the Manchester United tax. Right?
Yeah.
If Liverpool got him for 36 million, Manchester United would have paid 66 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Easily.
So, because it just doesn't work. So Arsenal probably looked at Cody Gakpo and said, decent player, but our number one target is Mudryk because they've been after him since the summer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I trust, because all the players they've bought over the last 2 or 3 windows, starting with Martin Odegaard, Ben White, all of these guys have been a hit. So at this point, I am inclined to trust them. And if Cody Gakpo goes to Liverpool, and you know what, he'll be a smash hit because he'll fit into the Klopp system very easily. But
yeah, I mean, I don't know about that one. I think the jury's out on him.
Yeah.
I have to look at the number of players that have come from the Dutch league straight into the Premier League. I am also remembering him. He played very well when we went to
He did.
Eindhoven, but he
Yeah, he
didn't
did.
play too
Even
well
in
when
the
he came
Emirates, he
to.
played. He
Well,
played all right.
he did nothing for them really, but then we had most of the ball, to be fair, like, you know. But he didn't set
It
the world
depends on the
alight for
team and
me.
the system.
Yeah,
It
he didn't set
depends
the
on the
world.
team and system,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So when you've got superior players around you, your performance goes up. But regardless, we're
He
getting
did well at the World
sidetracked.
Cup. He did well at the World
He
Cup,
did.
didn't he? Yeah,
He did.
yeah.
He did very
But
well.
if you
But
ask me,
regardless of
Zed,
that,
which one is going to do better in terms of hit the ground
mm,
running, I'd say Mudryk will end up being more successful in the Prem than
I don't know.
Cody Gakpo.
All I can say in this regard is I trust Arteta and Edu to have identified the correct player, the correct profile for what this club needs as of this moment and for the future.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
It's a very political answer that I've given, right? It's not right or wrong, but I think that's what the club has done, and
Yeah.
I hope they get it done, but I hope they don't overpay for him as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a couple of things before we wrap up today then.
Yeah, go on.
Zed, is the other player that Mr. Ornstein says that we've been strongly linked to, and he's actually come out and said that Arsenal want, and have been talking to said agents and Atleti with, is João Felix, Portuguese international. We've just seen him play at the World Cup. Didn't have a bad World Cup, to be fair.
He's all right.
I think Atletico paid over 100 million euros for him. It hasn't really worked out at
125.
Atleti. I'm not quite sure if he is the right fit for Atleti, hence why they want him out, and he wants out. And he's been linked to Manchester United. He has been linked with, I think, Chelsea.
Who hasn't been linked to Manchester United
this is
and
true,
Chelsea?
Yeah. But he's been very strongly linked with us. Now, a couple of days ago, and you know how these things are fluid in the rumour mill when it comes to football transfers, Ed, is that there were the Twitter sphere were talking about how Arteta may not be too keen on João Felix and whether he would fit into the system. Now, let's be abundantly clear here. I mean, you're absolutely right, and I would subscribe to what you said earlier about why we're bringing Mudryk in, and I think that's our nailed on number one target and what it would do, because I agree, it would save you needing to sign a striker, because what you would then have is you would still have quality on the wing with pace and intensity in Mudryk, provided he does hit the ground running, and then you could move Martinelli in the middle, and what a front three that would be: Saka, Martinelli, Mudryk.
Absolutely.
Yeah, with a quality striker. Let's not say, you know, with Eddie in the wings as well. Okay, so that's giving you a bit more squad depth, if you want to call it that. However, João Felix, I want to know what's your view and where would he fit in, because I think that's where the reservations are.
Yeah. So
because he can play as a 9. He can play as a 9, yeah, and he can play on the wing, you know, as a sort of left forward, right forward.
As far as I can see, this guy is not ready for the Premier League. That's as simple as I say. To me, he seems like a very good player, but obviously you have to take into account that he's been playing in a very defensive Atleti system. Okay, so we have not seen the best of him. And with Atletico Madrid, he has a long contract, so anything will just be a loan. And it'll be a hefty
they're talking
cost
about
loan.
sort of £8 million pounds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a cheap loan, right? But Arsenal can try a loan, right? Maybe a bit cheaper. £8 million for a loan is pretty hefty, right? They did try with Ødegaard. They liked him. It worked, and they bought him, right? So there's no harm in trying. But for me, as I currently see it, he is much better as a false 9 than an out-and-out striker. Right? Because I don't see his finishing ability as being that great. Maybe it's because he's lost some confidence. He doesn't play in the Atleti system, which allows him to express himself. But as far as I can see, he's not the striker that you're looking for. And I'd much rather have Mudryk, who adds the pace element to it.
Okay, Fair comment. Yeah, I think I'd pretty much agree with a lot of that. And the other thing as well is that where would he play? Because he certainly wouldn't come in and start over the said individuals that we've just talked about.
No, he will
Would he
not.
get in on the left hand side? No. Would he take Martinelli's?
Maybe the backup to right hand side for Saka. That's all I can
Yeah,
see.
and then when you're talking about an £8 million investment for a backup to Saka, it probably you struggle to make
It's too
sense
much.
of that. The final player, just going to quickly touch on because I know we're coming to the end of our hour. Zed is Ferran Torres left
Nope.
Manchester City.
It's as simple as
Left Manchester City in the summer to join Barcelona. Hasn't really played very much or hit the ground running out in Barcelona. But then they've got they certainly have got strikers galore out there, so it's very hard to get into that team since they've signed Lewandowski as well. I mean, they almost feel like they're playing Championship Manager the way they've signed players. But I think the theme here, and the reason why I sort of picked him to talk about, is that there's a theme here of Arteta wanting to go back to players that he knows and has coached. And he's been at City previous to joining Barcelona. For me, let me tell you where I am. I would be open to this. I would be open to this. I'm not sure if I agree with some of the figures that have been bandied around, sort of 43 million for a backup striker. I'd be open to a loan with an option. Again, suck it and see how it goes. He'd be cheaper than Joe Felix, right? And he knows the Prem. He's played for Man City. I haven't got his stats on me. I don't know how well he did out there. But, you know, Manchester City regret losing Jesus to us, right? I can see your hands moving there, looking at going into Mr. Google. But it's one that I would be open to at the right price. But you talk to me, why not?
Ferran Torres. Okay, so
give me his figures.
Forget the figures. Okay. He's only scored 2 goals in La Liga this season. Okay, that's the only thing that you want to know so far, right? You know, when he was at City, everyone rated him very highly. It's like, okay, this guy's got finishing ability. This guy's good. This guy's good. But City didn't bat an eye getting rid of him. They said 56 million Barcelona. Here you go, mate. Carry on.
Yeah.
Right. There's a reason for that. Okay. They moved on Jesus because they were getting Haaland.
Yeah.
Right. They sold Zinchenko and they regretted it. Right. The point is, for me, Ferran Torres, I don't think I've not seen enough of him since he left. So he left for Barcelona ages ago, I think last year, January, right? And he really wanted to go, and his heart was set on playing for Barcelona, right?
Yeah.
What I don't see with him is a long-term project. Maybe a loan, as you say, could change my mind. But he plays okay for France. Oh, sorry, not France, Spain. Spain. He's a Spanish player. Okay, he plays all right for them, but he can't get a game for Barcelona. He can't buy a game.
Do you want his stats for Man City?
Sorry?
Do you want his stats for Man City? They're in front of me.
Go on.
Season 2021.
Yeah.
Played 36. Started 24. Subbed on 12. Subbed off 13. Unused 22. But 13 goals. Winning 26 games. Drawing 4. Losing 6.
Okay, so 13 goals.
And that season, I'm considering. I'm just thinking, 2021. He was at City then, wasn't he?
He was at City. 2021.
It's not a bad return, is it? It's not a bad return.
No, but you have to take into perspective. He's got Kevin De Bruyne, man.
We've got Odegaard.
Yeah, Kevin De Bruyne. That's what I'm gonna say. It's a different level. Odegaard is not there yet. Okay, he will hopefully get there,
but
he's not there.
We're playing a lot of good football, fluid football.
We are. I just don't rate him. Personal. That's just personal. I just don't rate Ferran Torres.
Yeah.
When he joined from Valencia, I didn't rate him. He stayed at City. everyone was gassed up like, okay, he could be the next big thing. Pep moved on relatively quickly, so I don't
I
think.
tell you who I
No,
wouldn't mind, who isn't for sale, is the chap that's
go
over
on.
in Argentina that started in the World Cup final.
Which one?
The chap that's playing for Man City now.
Alvarez.
Alvarez. So he's basically
Man
this.
City.
He's Ferran Torres' replacement, wasn't he?
He is, and he's
To be
better.
fair, and oh
And he's
my God,
better.
what a player! So that's probably why they didn't give
Exactly.
a shit that he'd gone.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
so no to Torres, yes to
No
Mudryk,
trouble. Yes.
and look, before we wrap
Maybe
up,
to Felix.
yeah, maybe to Felix. I think, look, before we wrap up, what I want to say on transfers is that if we do not secure cover for the Thomas Partey role,
Oh yeah, mate.
we will be in trouble. He is going to get injured again. It is going to
Mhm.
happen, right? We
Mhm.
know it, right? And we do not have adequate cover.
No.
Mohamed Al Neni can do a job, but he's not the answer long term.
Nope.
You know, that's where I believe. And I, if it were me, I would absolutely do what you said earlier about the save buying a striker for the moment, because you got your Martinelli as your backup by signing
Mhm.
Mudryk. Your front line is sorted. You got Smith Rowe coming back. That's another conversation. Okay. And then I would heavily invest in backup in the DM area. Somebody that is, you know, I don't know what's his name from Leicester City.
Tielemans.
Not Tielemans. The DM from City.
Leicester City.
Leicester City.
Samare.
Not
Boubacar
Samari.
Samare.
The other one, the one that we've always liked.
Okay. Forgetting his name now.
Yeah.
Have to find him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know who you mean.
Ndidi.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. Somebody like that, you know, or a Kante. You know, I know that Chelsea are
Kante's
talking to him
gone,
at the
mate.
moment, and he'd be good cover. You know,
No, he
somebody like
won't.
that.
No,
Yeah.
he won't. He'll be more injured than Partey is. So no. Kante was a great player, one of the best in his position, but I wouldn't buy him. It'll be David Luiz all over again,
Maybe.
right?
Maybe.
So I think, to be honest, I think finally for me, they may wait till the summer to fill that position.
Yeah.
To get the right player in there, because that's the approach they've taken previously.
Yeah.
Hot take.
Yeah, well, I mean, as I say, that's the area for me that definitely needs strengthening. As I think, you know, we would struggle. We've
We
seen
will.
it. Lokonga isn't the answer.
No, he's more of an 8.
Yeah, and he's not even a very good 8, to be fair.
He's still learning. He's still learning.
Okay, listen, I think it's been a brilliant pod. We've just hit the hour mark, Zed. Any sort of, I mean, I'm just going on my little list here. We've covered everything, haven't we, really, to be fair?
We have. It's
covered
been
everything.
a wonderful experience, actually, with the cameras on. It's a bit more freeing, but
you better get ready, because you're going to be presenting next week's one, so...
Yeah, hopefully. Well, I'll be ready now. It's a lot more easier, but I'll let the people decide how good I did.
Can you tell the lads and ladies where we can find you on Twitter?
Yeah, so I manage the Twitter account for the channel, so you can message me on @TAGP, which stands for the All Gunners Podcast.
And guys, we are looking to get guests on in the next couple of shows as well. We had in our first series, we had Graham from AFTV. We had Mr. Potts, Dan Potts, brilliant pod. We had Danny, AFC TV as well, who came on and really gave us a controversial show. I remember that one. That one was a classic. And we have many other new guests lined up as well. And if you do wish to join and come on, you don't need to be anybody special. You can be just anybody. You know, we've had Attar Khan, who's a very prominent Manchester United supporter that lives near us as well. And you know, if you want to come on, drop us a line, at Zed's Twitter. You can catch me, as you can see on screen, or I hope you can see it on screen, but at Harry Khanu, and that's spelled HARRY KHANU. I don't think you can see it on screen.
You can.
You can. Right. And guys, it's been special. It's been amazing.
Yes.
We've covered a lot. Hopefully, we're coming back to you very, very soon with more content and episode 3, series 2. Take care. God bless. See you soon.